Good evening, night owls and curious souls, and welcome to another spellbinding episode of Paranormal Nightshift, the show where creeping shadows divulge their hidden truths and your hair-raising stories take center stage. I'm your host, Gideon, stepping into the darkness alongside you, guiding you through the murky waters of the unexplained, the uncanny, and the downright terrifying. Before we unlock tonight's story, I have an exciting treat for you. Over at paranormalnightshift.com, you can secure your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, the inaugural ebook in our Dimensional Desperado saga. It's your exclusive passport into the bizarre and breathtaking world of Buck Shadow Sheriff Freeman, an intrepid time traveler who wrestles with the supernatural at every turn. Don't miss the chance to join Buck on his first foray into otherworldly chaos and interdimensional adventure. Now, my friends, it's time to dim the lights and embrace the hush that falls when reality blurs into the realm of the unknown. Tonight's tale, A Brush with the Other Side, arrives courtesy of one of our very own listeners, JC, a compelling story that just might have you triple-checking every creak in your home tonight. So settle in, keep your senses sharp, and prepare to walk that fine line between what we know and what lurks just beyond. Let's step boldly into the dark together. My first memory of the paranormal happened when I was around 5. My extended family was hosting one of our annual gatherings. Lots of relatives, laughter, and the bustling energy that comes when everyone you love is crammed into a single house. I was at my godmother's place, a home I'd visited many times before, though I'd never found anything particularly unsettling or eerie about it. It was just a typical family space, filled with the comforting smells of home-cooked food and the echo of familiar voices. That day, however, was different. I remember running through the halls when I bumped into 2 little girls. They were twins, identical in every feature, with long blonde hair and matching dresses, one in white and the other in a pale yellow. They looked about my age, perhaps a bit older, and they both wore those simple sandal-type shoes that little kids often have in the summer. They introduced themselves as Elizabeth and Lila, and we spent the entire afternoon chasing each other around the house, giggling and whispering about secret hiding spots. I recall them pulling me to the basement door by the hand, urging me, sometimes forcefully, to explore the dimly lit cellar. My 5-year-old self was thrilled and nervous, but their enthusiasm was contagious. After all, making new friends at that age feels like discovering treasure. So we were, climbing down the creaky wooden steps, me giggling and whispering back to them about the spooky shapes in the shadows. At some point, my uncle came downstairs looking for me. He saw me chatting excitedly into the darkness, presumably by myself, and asked whom I was talking to. "Elizabeth and Lila," I replied, pointing to the 2 blonde girls. But the look of confusion on his face was immediate and alarming. He couldn't see them. Brushing it off with a playful shake, he herded me back upstairs. I figured he just hadn't noticed them run past. Fast forward about 25 years, my sister and I returned to that house to visit my godmother. The memory of those twin girls nagged at me, especially since twin births weren't exactly rare in our family. My father himself had been a twin. So I casually brought it up. "Hey, who were those twin blonde girls I played with here when I was 5? My godmother's face went slack, and she shook her head. "We've never had blonde twins in this family, honey." She went on to explain that years ago, 2 little girls who looked exactly as I described had perished in a tragic house fire just 2 doors down. My stomach flipped, and a cold shiver spread through me. All these years, I'd thought they were relatives. In a blink, The reality hit. I'd been playing all day with two spirits. Not long after my encounters with Elizabeth and Lila, another kind of presence entered my life. I was still around 5 years old at my friend's house. She invited me to play what I can only describe as a summoning game. At 5, I was clueless about how dangerous or misguided such games could be. She said it was to contact her father's spirit, who had sadly taken his own life at home. I didn't understand the weight of that either. The supernatural intrigued me back then, even if I couldn't articulate it. But my friend and I did something we should never have done. We didn't close the session appropriately. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, I began to sense a dark figure lurking just out of sight. Sometimes I'd catch it in my peripheral vision, a tall, indistinct shape without features or color. Other times I'd feel a dense heaviness in the corner of the room, almost like a vacuum pulling at the air. Although it didn't speak, its presence radiated something that felt watchful and threatening. As I grew older, the sensation neither disappeared nor eased, but I learned to live with it. Sometimes I wondered if the shadow followed me to keep me from seeing the twin spirits again, or if it had its own, more sinister agenda. Years passed, and I tried to push that figure back in my mind, yet it never indeed left. Recently, during a past life regression session with a hypnotist named Bruce Kowalski, I experienced something that still gives me chills to recall. The hypnotist led our group back through our ages, counting up and reversing the process to revisit early memories. When he reached age 5, my entire reality shifted as I'd stepped into a time machine. Suddenly, I was no longer in that office. Instead, I was right back there, face to face with the shadow figure for the first time. Every sensation I had repressed, the cold dread, the silent intimidation, flooded back, overwhelming my senses. My present self momentarily dissolved, and the child in me stood in terror. Although the session ended, I came away knowing that this entity, this shadow, has been a silent companion, perhaps feeding off my fear, my entire life. While my childhood encounters helped shape my open-mindedness toward the paranormal, nothing could have prepared me for my near-death experiences. 2 brushes with mortality that took me beyond any realm I recognized. The first NDE happened years ago, and while I didn't initially give it the focus it deserved, I still remember what I saw. It was as if a threshold opened, revealing a space of brilliant light. I sensed other presences, but the memory felt distant, like glimpsing a vivid painting that starts to fade when you look away. I filed the experience away, unaware of how important it would become. Then, in January 2022, everything changed. A second near-death experience thrust me into realms I never imagined existed. Time and space warped, and I found myself where communication was not spoken, but telepathic. I sensed heaven, or multiple planes of heaven, bathed in pure light. I was greeted by orbs of white light, each brimming with warmth, intelligence, and love, and there among them were 10 of my deceased family members, radiating an almost indescribable sense of peace and unity. But that was not all. Alongside those heavenly visions, I also glimpsed a form of hell, a realm of darkness and despair. A demon appeared in the aftermath of my experience, haunting my nights and disturbing my sleep. Its presence was visceral, invading my dreams and anchoring me in paralyzing fear. It felt different from the shadow figure of my childhood, more malevolent, more charged with the intent to harm. I spent many nights awake, feeling like my bed had become a battleground between light and darkness. Seeking solace and understanding, I reached out to support groups and podcasts. I shared my story on The Jeff Mara Show, Jeff Reynolds' podcast, Ediologic, Eric Bennett's podcast, and Jay Spiller's show. Connecting with others who've had NDEs felt like finding my tribe, people who understood the bewildering mix of awe and fear that comes from standing at the edge of life and death. I now volunteer with multiple IANDS chapters nationwide: Chicago, Hawaii, New York, and North Carolina, because these groups provide a safe space for people like me to process extraordinary experiences without judgment. Today I juggle many roles. I'm a mother, an artist, and a wife. I also have a deep love for muscle cars, NASCAR, ballet, and heavy metal, an eclectic blend that might seem contradictory, but it's who I am. My fascination with the spiritual and earthly realms compels me to study biblical studies and psychology. Someday, I hope to work in grief counseling to help those grappling with loss and the confusing aftermath of near-death or supernatural events. Despite everything, the presence of that childhood shadow still occasionally flickers in my peripheral vision, especially when I'm emotionally vulnerable or stressed. The memory of those blonde twin girls remains a gentle reminder that not all spiritual encounters are dark or frightening. Some are simply echoes of kindness and curiosity from another time. Every so often, I also sense a protective figure, a little boy who appeared once during a regression or in a fleeting dream, who seems to ward off negativity. Is it my spirit guide, a guardian angel, or the echo of some past life bond? I'm not sure, but I take comfort in the sense of safety it brings. These experiences, playful, frightening, transcendent, ultimately form the tapestry of my life story. They've taught me that we exist in a delicate balance between worlds, and that there's so much more to reality than we're typically led to believe. I hope that by sharing my encounters, I can encourage others to explore the mysteries around them. After all, it's in facing the unknown that we often find our most incredible moments of clarity, faith, and ultimately, peace. That's all for tonight's spellbinding episode of Paranormal Nightshift. Thank you, JC, for daring to share your mesmerizing tale with all of us. It's stories like yours that keep us peering into the shadows, wondering what lurks beyond the veil. For those of you listening, remember that by joining our Patreon, you'll get ad-free access and sneak peeks into upcoming Dimensional Desperado episodes and a front-row seat to future mysteries that might alter your perception of what's possible. Still on the fence? No worries. Remember to subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, comment, and tell us which part of JC's story sent chills down your spine. Your insights fuel our mission to shine a light on the unexplainable. And don't forget to claim your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado over at paranormalnightshift.com. It's the perfect passport to embark on Buck Shadow Sheriff Freeman's boundary-pushing adventures through time and the supernatural. Finally, if you have a hair-raising experience simmering in your own life story, we want to hear it. Submit your account at paranormalnightshift.com, and who knows, your encounter might be the next spotlight in our quest to expose the unknown. Until next time, keep your senses sharp, your lights on, and remember, sometimes the things we fear at night are just stories until they're not.